how we do. Unlike a school district who pretty much has the revenues come in, we know what our spending is going to be, it's on teachers. Because of our capital and because of our grants, there's a lot more of a swing. So we need to have that fund balance, for all of the reasons that I described. So that's chart 2. Any questions or comments? And like I said, next month in April, I will go dive into detail with expenditures and show that difference between our operations and personnel costs versus our capital costs. And that capital will definitely show those spikes. Document number 3 is just the detail behind those charts. So in case you have questions. Document number 4 is the history of the property tax revenues. And, going back to, the first one back in 1964, it's really important to understand the different types of property tax levies. So we, as a park district, school districts, any entity that is not a charter entity under the Ohio Revised Code, so what the heck are you talking about, Jen? So for example, cities and some counties, there's only 2 counties in the state of Ohio that are charter counties, but there are a lot of municipalities that are charter communities, which means that they can create their own type of government different than what's prescribed by the Ohio Revised Code. So they don't have to follow, when it comes to property tax, the influence of what's known as House Bill 920. So House Bill 920 long ago was put into place to essentially protect the taxpayers. So when a levy goes into place, it's basically whatever the property tax value is when the levy was passed by voters. So when I was talking before about charter communities, for example, I worked at the City of Lakewood. City of Lakewood did not, or City of Lakewood is a charter community, so they weren't impacted by charter or by 920 in their millage. So whenever there was an increase in property tax value, they would get that value. But when we saw the recession, the property tax values went down. Those communities saw a significant loss in their property tax revenues. So House Bill 920 not only protects the voters, but it also protects the entities, because if there is a decrease in property tax collections or the values of properties that the taxes are levied on, then you're held. But at the same time, you're not seeing increases as property tax values increase over time. So again, long story short, whenever you see new, that's new property tax millage for that year. With renewal, that means you're renewing it to when it was originally replaced. So again, Jen, what are you talking about? I'll show you that in a little bit and kind of what that means. But this shows the history of the 2.6 mills that we have gotten to since the last one that failed was back in 1985. So the Park District has been very successful with the voters. And our last one in 2019, almost 66%. That's a good margin for passage. So that just gives you the history and understanding the difference between the millage. So any questions on that?
Excellent.
Okay, the next one are 2 documents that were recently provided by the Geauga County Auditor's Office. And this is Schedule B. So several things are very important here. So if you look at the far left-hand corner where it says the 20 2021 value, that 3.6 billion. So that again is the total value of all of the properties in Geauga County that they levy property taxes off of. So that's that valuation. So when they, go out every 6 years and, update the values, sometimes you go in person and look at it and basically do the property assessments. That's how they come to that value. Also, when properties transfer, so whatever that new sales price is, that will go on the books as the value of that property. So that 3.6 billion is what the Park District is collecting because we cover the entire county. And then, of course, to make things a little more complicated, the state of Ohio breaks out properties into agricultural and residential, other, which would be commercial, industrial, and then public utilities, that the valuation. So this shows the three levies that the park has gone to the voters so there's the 90, my glasses, excuse me, the 86, which would expire in 2025 of the 0.7 mils, the 2000 levy, the 0.9, which expires in 2039, and then the most recent one, the 2013, the 1 mil, which would expire in 2023. And then also property tax, because it is not easy. You would think. I could also talk ad nauseum about income tax, but we don't have to worry about that. But property tax is pretty complicated, and as you'll see by this document. So it's the value, the different types, the millage, and then on that other side, what I talked about before is, okay, this is 100% of everyone paid, 98% of the people paid, or 95%. And so that varies also by, if it's a year that we're in recession and people can't pay their property tax, we'll see lower property tax collections. So again, this document is, required by Ohio law to be provided by county auditor offices, and they did that. Typically, you get this in Cuyahoga County. Because of all the changes throughout the year, Cuyahoga County does not distribute this until like the second week in December. So the fact we get this early is kind of interesting, but there's nothing wrong with that. But there's going to be a lot of changes because of what I said with new construction, with values changing, contested changes, people not paying. So this is the county's best estimate. But when that certificate that I talked about at the beginning, when they certify it, they might change their numbers based on what actually happened throughout the year. So they gave us our 2.6, and they also gave a document of what we would collect going into 23 if we do not, if the reduction stays. So those are those documents that were provided by the county. So any questions about Schedule B?
One thing that is a little bit unusual, I don't recall a time where we received two Schedule Bs. We usually receive the one Schedule B with what the taxpayers have expressed in their will, which is a collection of our $6 million. The auditor did send over two with the reduction showing the $4.6 million. So two were sent over.
But with the public voting for it, how does that work? That they're able to basically, on their own, take it away?
Excellent question. And again, it's language within the Ohio Revised Code. The keyword, and Todd, you can correct me if I'm wrong with the district's attorney, is the term need. So when we present our tax budget, so again, keep in mind the tax budget, even though it says the word budget, is not the budget that you pass as a board to operate in the upcoming year. It's basically, it's kind of, because we're doing it mid-year, going into the next year, it's best guess. So, you know, in my experience, the tax budget is, you know, saying, county, this is the property tax millage that, you know, our government entity has asked for the voters, and the voters have